guys, welcome back. I set up on this table about all the products I use to fix arcade cabinets. Looks like a lot, it is a lot, but obviously every arcade restoration uses different products. It's not like it's always the same product and I use all these products every single time, because that's not true. But let's start with like the woodworking part of it, okay? So basically what we have here is the tools I use to sand down the cabinets, fix the wood and stuff like that. So let's say I want to join two pieces of wood back together. Let's say I cut half of a cabinet off and I have to put a new bottom onto a top, okay? I could use a biscuit joiner, which I don't have that out here right now, or I can use a doweling jig, and a doweling jig is much cheaper than a biscuit joiner. So if you go to Harbor Freight, you can buy one of these right here, and this is a doweling jig, okay? Now, if you wanted to join 2 3/4 inch pieces of wood together, you can actually use this one right here, which is a 1/4 inch. So what this does is when this clamps down onto your piece of 3/4 inch wood right here, it automatically centers this every single time. So this hole will be in the center of a 3/4 inch piece. So if you drill a hole through here, you'll end up with a 1/4 inch hole directly in the center of your piece of plywood. We'll just say plywood. So then when you are butting an old cabinet to a new cabinet, you'll have a nice centered dowel in the cabinet plywood, and then a centered dowel into the one that you use. Now, so when you go to put the two pieces of wood together, you take a pencil and you run a line between the old piece and the new piece, anywhere you want that dowel to be. And then if you come onto this tool here, if you look on the inside, see that mark right there? That is your center line for that 1/4 inch one, okay? So basically you just go through here and you center it onto that, your pencil line, and you'll have your holes in the right spot. So I use this quite a bit. I do use a biscuit joiner as well, but I actually kind of like this a little better. So that's pretty much that as far as like if you wanted to replace part of the side and join it together. I use that, and then I use this Tight Bond Ultimate 3 wood glue. I like this stuff. It's waterproof, interior, exterior glue. I use this to glue my wood back together on my cabinets. This is pretty much the only glue I ever use. I don't use that Gorilla Glue and stuff. I know some of that Gorilla Glue, it swells up. It like foams up on you. So I don't use any of that stuff. So if you're putting a new bottom on your cabinet, obviously you no longer have a T-molding groove. So you need to put a T-molding groove back into your cabinet so that your T-molding can go back on. And these slot cutters, you can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them on tmolding.com. I'm sure there's other places that sell them. You'll probably get them just about anywhere as long as you know the size of this. This is a 3 30-second T-molding slot cutter, okay? And this will cut about a 1/2 inch deep, which is more than you need, but I always like, I like the fact that you cut a little bit deeper. So this has a bearing right here that rides on the edge of your cabinet, on the bottom edge of your cabinet when you have this in the router. Now, as far as centering it on the cabinet, that's something you have to do on your own. It doesn't automatically center it for you. So what I do is I put this in my router and I tighten it down, and then I leave the base of my router loose, and then I put it into the groove of the cabinet of the original part that was cut at the factory. And then at that point I know that it's in line with that, in case like the factory maybe had cut it off a hair, because if you go down to the bottom to your new piece of wood and you just kind of center it on your wood, it might be a hair off up higher, and then it's going to be a little weird looking. So that's what I use for the T-molding slot cutter. It's a 3 30-second bit. These are carbide tips on here. Now I recommend, and I've learned from using this, so These tend to burn up on high speed, okay? If you turn your router down to maybe like middle of the road speed, these last longer. At high speed, for some reason, these do tend to burn out. So that's how you put a T-molding groove back in. Now, I have various tools for stripping down the cabinets, you know, to bear wood. A lot of times you'll see me use this. The reason why I use this is because I do automotive painting and bodywork. This hooks up to my vacuum system. I'm sure you've seen it on my videos before. It's right over here. This is a special vacuum system that is set up to accept these tools that I use, and it sucks probably 90% of the dust out of the air. So I really don't have much dust at all in the air, which is nice for me because I do this all the time. And if I were breathing this dust every day, it probably would be dead by now. So these, you know, what I use is it has a piece of sandpaper that's a screen, okay? And the reason why this is a screen is so that it'll suck the dust through it. These are very effective. These work very fast. That's called a mud buster. But I use that a lot to knock stuff down. You'll actually see me using it on the Pango cabinet because the one side doesn't need to replace, but it's swelled up. And we're gonna use this, and I'm gonna show you in that video how it's gonna knock it down flat and quick. So as far as the rest of my sanding on cabinet, I use is my smaller 6-inch DA sander. Once again, it hooks up to my vacuum system. Obviously, you don't need that. You can get a sander that has a bag attachment, or you can get, you know, you don't have to have an air compressor with a sander. You can get a battery operated one, for instance. So this is a battery one by Bauer. I use this sometimes. If I just want to do something quick and I want to pull out the vacuum and everything, this has a bag that slides on here, and it does a fairly good job. And it has holes drilled in the bottom here that will collect a decent amount of your dust. You can get the sandpaper and the sanders at Harbor Freight. I like Harbor Freight. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if they say it's junk. You're wasting your money. I call bullshit because I bought tons of stuff from Harbor Freight. I beat my tools up. I use them. It's my life. And yes, these sanders are extremely expensive, $300–400 a piece, which is a lot of money for a sander, okay? But if they sold those air sanders with those air attachments and everything, would I buy them from Harbor Freight? Hell yeah, I'd use them. Why not? You know, so I go, if this is a $400 sander through 3M and Harbor Freight made this, which they might now, I don't even know, I haven't been there, but I've had this for years. But if Harbor Freight made this for $100 versus $300–400 through 3M, I'd buy it. Even if it lasted me 2 years, guess what? I could buy 4 of those, which would be 8 years of use for the same price as this 3M one, which probably might only last 5–8 years. I don't know. It's a couple years old already. But I don't have any issues with any of these Bauer tools. In fact, when I go to finish that back building, I actually went to Harbor Freight and I bought all their Hercules tools for the back building. Because once again, I get these things dirty and I beat on them and they last. The batteries on these actually work. I have in my van from doing construction for 30-some years, I have all DeWalt tools, all cordless DeWalt tools, table saws, everything. And these batteries are not far off from the quality of the DeWalt ones that I used every day for years and years and years. So yeah, you can definitely get away with this. You can buy these sanders for like $30–40 with the bag from Harbor Freight. So you can really do a lot of arcade restoration by just going to Harbor Freight and buying tools on the cheap, and you know, getting them done a lot cheaper that way. You know, back in the day, you know, from doing construction for so long, we bought better tools because that's all we had back then, okay? 32 years of doing it. You know, you didn't have Harbor Freight around and stuff like that. At least not by me. I don't know when Harbor Freight started, but we didn't have that kind of stuff by us. You know, everything was kind of specialized tools and stuff, and it was expensive. I remember when my dad bought his first nail gun and compressor, it costed a fortune. But nowadays, they make a lot of throwaway tools, and I'm fine with that. I get it. I don't personally think you need to spend the money on expensive stuff anymore. I'm not here to show off my fancy tools. I'm here to work and make stuff look good again. So you can also, you know, knock your cabinet down. You'll see me use a sanding block, and I dropped my sandpaper. Real quick before I show you this sanding block, this is the sandpaper I use for that little DA sander. Once again, it's a screen with the sandpaper on there, and it sucks through it. But you'll see me use sanding blocks for edges and stuff like that. I like this one. This is kind of a little bit of a foam block. It's got a little bit of a squishiness to it. This is a real nice block, and these are basically a Durablock. But these are made by 3M because, once again, these hook up to my vacuum system, and it sucks the dust through these little pinholes on the sandpaper. But you don't have to have this stuff, guys. You can go to Harbor Freight and buy yourself a sanding block. I've used this in the past quite a bit. This is just a belt sander. Once again, this is cordless. I like using cordless tools because I'm just used to using them at work. But once again, there's nothing wrong with a one that has a cord. This once again has a dust port, which I probably could hook into my vacuum system, or this has a bag that slides on here. This will knock down your cabinet really fast, but you got to be careful. You got to make sure you keep it nice and flat. You don't want to be rocking it or tilting it, because then you're running grooves in your cabinet. Same thing with your sanders here. When you sand, you always want to keep this thing 100% flat. Don't start going like this or that, because then you're just making grooves in your wood, and you're going to see them when you paint your cabinet. Now, if I'm stripping artwork off and stuff, sometimes it comes right off. Sometimes I have to use a heat gun. So once again, a Bauer tool. I'm showing you guys that I'm using cheap tools here, and they work. This is another Bauer tool. This is a cordless heat gun. Works really well. It does go through batteries kind of quick, so you gotta, get the bigger batteries and have a lot of batteries. I have probably a dozen or so batteries back here. Now, yeah, I could take my van back here all the time and get my tools out of it to work in here, but I just like to have a set of tools in every area. So there's a set of tools in this shop. There's gonna be a full set of tools in the back shop. So I'm not running around looking for everything. So that's just the heat gun there. We use that a lot for decal removal and stuff like that. You can get a corded angle grinder. You'll see me use this to cut bolts off. Possibly a staple sticking out of the wood that you can't pull out. You can kind of cut it down. This has a cutoff wheel on here. You can put a grinding wheel on it, obviously. And then I use this quite a bit, believe it or not. This multi-tool is probably one of the best tools I ever had. When these came out 10, 15 years ago, I had bought one for work, and I loved it. And I could basically do anything with this tool. I can cut plywood with it. You can get yourself into corners, because this blade just vibrates back and forth. Okay, it's not spinning in a circle. So you can get right up on the edge of something and cut straight in. So this is very useful, especially in arcade restoration. There's been many a times where I've had to use this for stupid little things here and there. And it's been kind of a lifesaver, to be honest with you. So you'll also see me strip down like metal control panels and stuff. And I use this disc here. I call it a hamburger disc. These are just like a stripping disc. You can get these. These I buy from Summit Racing. Amazon sells them as well. And this just has a real quick disconnect on it. So this goes on here. And this disc works pretty quick. As you can see, there's actually paint and glue residue stuck to it. But I use this a lot to strip down parts if I don't sandblast. This is just a grinding wheel that also goes on to this, like this. So it just slips on there like that, and you can easily remove it. You can buy these attachments on Amazon as well. They're like 20 bucks. I'm using an air angle grinder. You can probably put that into a drill, which would be a little bit awkward having a drill on it, but you could do it and get used to it if that's what you're used to. Obviously, I'm used to this, but they might even sell some sort of an angle tool that you can use without having a compressor. And then every once in a while, I'll use this tool. Now you can also probably put this in a drill, but these tools spin at like 10,000 RPM. And this is a deburring bit. So this will take burrs off of metal. And also, like if you have a broken screw head off and you need to kind of just get that shaft of the screw out, you can use this little bit here and it takes care of that. As far as stripping the cabinets down, you can use, you've seen in some of my videos in the past, you can use isopropyl alcohol, okay? If it is like, I don't know, I mean, I don't even know if it works on latex or not, but I know it works on like oil-based paints and stuff. But I don't know, I'm sure you've seen in my past, like my bubbles video and a couple other videos, I physically took the paint off the side of the cabinet by using isopropyl alcohol and food wrap, what do we call this stuff here? I forget the name of it. But anyways, this clear plastic saran wrap, I guess you'd say, is just a generic name. But you use this, so basically you take a thick paper towels, okay, and you put them on your cabinet and you completely saturate it with this alcohol until it's soaking wet. And then you cover it with the saran wrap, the whole cabinet, and you just let it sit there for, it could take anywhere from a half an hour to 3-4 hours, depending on how much paint is on there. And your temperature has a lot to do with it too. If it's really cold, it seems to take longer than if it's warmer out. But you don't want to do it out in the direct sun either, because it will start evaporating that stuff, even though it's under plastic. So make sure you do it inside. But that's a really good way to strip paint off a cabinet that somebody had in the 80s, 90s rolled on, which was really popular, was Rust-Oleum paint. So people would roll the Rust-Oleum paint over the artwork and convert the cabinet to something else. So by using this, you can get down to the original artwork again, touch it up, and be able to save it. Because believe it or not, a lot of the times when you strip it down, the original artwork wasn't in that bad a shape. And it also makes me wonder if possibly them painting over that original artwork didn't preserve it in a way, because it kept the artwork from kind of drying out. Because a lot of these old cabinets, the artwork would dry out and then it would start flaking off the cabinet. So that's pretty much it as far as stripping the paint off. Now, I use a sandblaster for a lot of my metal parts. I am going to be getting a sandblaster cabinet, which I think I have a picture of it actually. Let me grab it. I actually just threw it in the garbage, but we'll get it out. If I can find it. My neighbor had brought this to me, which I already knew about it. This place is only about an hour and a half from me. I have to get a trailer and to borrow a trailer from my buddy or something and pick this up. But once the back building is done, I'm going to be purchasing this 72-inch wide sandblasting cabinet, okay? Yes, it's expensive. It's $2,500, but bags of sand nowadays, and this has a whole dust collection system. It has a vacuum system, so it kind of cleans out all the dust and stuff in the air while you're sandblasting, so you can see what you're doing. It has lights in it and everything else. But the good thing about this recirculates your sand, and it's reusable. Now, when I sandblast outside, I am wasting all that sand. And sand nowadays is $12 to $15 a bag. Now, I will use, on average, 3 bags of sand per cabinet, which, let's add that up. Let's say $15 a piece for an even round number. You're at $45 of sand per cabinet, okay? So you do 10 cabinets, that's $450. You do 20 cabinets, that's $900. Before you know it, what I'm gonna save in sand product is gonna pay for that cabinet. Is it gonna take me years? Yeah. But I do a lot of car sandblasting too. So I sandblast a lot of car parts, bumpers, bumper brackets, drive shafts, all that stuff. You know, control arms, all that stuff. And that's why I need that 6-foot long cabinet, because a lot of these bumper brackets and stuff are 5 feet long and more. So that's why I need the bigger cabinet. But I bet you within 2 years, what I'll save in sand that I blow out into the grass and into the air will pay for that sandblasting cabinet. But obviously I don't expect other people to do that, because who's gonna want, obviously you can buy smaller ones that are cheaper, but most people are not gonna spend that kind of money for a hobby. You know, you're trying to do it on the cheap, which that's how I do it. I never buy cabinets that are in good shape, that are expensive. I always buy cheap, and I fix them. Even at the end of me fixing a cheap cabinet, I might be at the same price as I could have bought one for, but I saved a cabinet from going to the landfill because nobody wants to put in the work to fix these things. I want to fix them. I want to take the worst cabinets I can find and fix them and bring them back to life, rather than them just getting thrown away. So yeah, I might spend the same amount of money on some of these games. A lot of them I don't. I can literally restore a game for half the price as if I wanted to buy one in good shape. But I'm just saving the crappy cabinets, in my opinion, and that to me is important, and I get the thrill out of fixing them too, you know. Sometimes it's not always about the game, sometimes it's about the restoration and how it looks too. I get, you know, towards that as well. So my sandblasting, I use a pressurized sandblasting pot, which I have 2 different size ones. This is my smaller one, and then I have a bigger one. The bigger one really takes material off really fast. But I use that mostly for like car frames and stuff like that. This one works pretty good for arcade parts and stuff. It's still pretty powerful, and it still will blow the part out of your hand if you're not holding it well. The sand that I use is from Tractor Supply. It's actually not sand, it's actually coal. Back in the day when I was young, we used silica sand until it became illegal to sandblast with silica sand. So you're not allowed to buy silica sand anymore for sandblasting use. But anyways, this is called Black Diamond. You get it at Tractor Supply. I'm sure other people sell it as well. Now they sell 2 different versions at Tractor Supply. I call this the red label, okay? And then they have another bag that has black label. Same writing, but in a black label. You don't want the black label one. The black label one is too thick of a material. It will get clogged in your sandblaster and you'll have nothing but issues with it. So this stuff it's not marked on this side. Let's see if it's marked on this side. Yes, they marked it on this side of the bag. It is 1/8 inch material, 30/60, 40/80. They're both those 2 numbers are both 1/8 inch material. They'll have this on the black label, the 20/40 or the 28/50, which is 1/4 inch material. Like I said, you don't want that. It'll clog up your tips. It'll even clog up this one. I haven't tried it in the big one, so it might not clog the big one up, but I'm not sure. But yes, these come from Tractor Supply. They're about $12 to $13 a bag. It's just coal. You can blow it into your yard. It's not going to hurt your yard one bit. It's not illegal to do or anything like that. I think it's environmentally friendly. It's not like it's silica sand, where silica sand, I believe, got into people's lungs, and I think eventually you can get really sick and possibly die from it. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But this is right here. This is a parts tumbler. Okay, I use that for all my screws and hardware and stuff like that. There's actually parts in here right now from Spy Hunter, which I need to clean out of here. But I let my parts go for about a week. Okay, a full week. I don't usually look at them or anything like that. I just kind of just let them do their thing. And they do sometimes get all tangled up like that. This definitely happens. But you can see, like, look at this gear and stuff. Look at that, it's brand new. Okay, now the downfall with this is you get built up crushed walnut shells in all your screw heads and Allen heads and all that. But this still has a little bit of, that is not rust, that's like decoloration, or it's decolored from something, I don't know. But you know, these are just like, obviously it's got dust and dirt all over it. You got to clean them up pretty good after you do this. These springs right here are for my coin door. If I can get it off. They do get twisted around each other sometimes, but these springs for the coin door were 100% rusted. Look at the difference. Now these, stuff like this, I like to spray a little clear coat on it, and it helps to prevent it from rusting further, or re-rusting I should say. But very good. You can get these I think for 40-50 bucks on Amazon. I use crushed walnut shells. I get Desert Blend from the pet store. It's cheaper, or you can order on Amazon. It's cheaper than using actual crushed walnut shells for bullet casings and stuff like that. So the Desert Blend's cheaper. The only thing is after about a week or so, this stuff starts to really break down into a fine powder. So after about a week or so, it's really not doing anything anymore. So at that point, whatever the parts look like is about as good as they're gonna get. You could probably use, I almost want to tempt it, I think I'm gonna try it, glass beads. I think I'm gonna put some glass beads in here because I think they'll last longer, and I bet you they would clean quicker than the Desert Blend. I'm gonna try that on a project. We'll get some glass beads and see what happens. So that's pretty much it as far as like cleaning the little screws and stuff like that. Let's move on to respirators and dust masks. You'll always see me wear a respirator when I paint, okay? Now this is a respirator. 3M sells them. You can get them at Harbor Freight. Everybody around sells them. So this is a canister right here. All right, this is your second filter. This is your first filter. Okay, this is just like a thick cotton filter that slides into this thing and then it clips over top of that other filter. Now, this is what these filters catch. If you don't wear a mask, that's in your lungs right there, okay? So if you're doing this every single day, your lungs are filling up more and more with paint. And automotive paint is extremely dangerous if you breathe it for long periods of time, because automotive paint has a hardener in it, okay? A hardener is going to harden in your lungs, and it's eventually going to build up in there. You don't want that. So this pre-filter catches probably 99% of the dirt that you're breathing in when you're spraying. And whatever it doesn't catch, this canister filter grabs the rest of it. You'll see me every now and then, I'll use this until it's shot. I'll use a couple of these, and then when I know that this is starting to get a little dirty over time, I'll end up just using this and not this on top of it for 1 or 2 uses, then I throw it away. So this is obviously an old one versus a new one. And then when I sand, even though I have the vacuum system that collects almost all the dust in the air, I also have in here for doing sanding is, I don't think anybody's ever seen that up there. That up there is a dust collection system, okay? It's works off of remote control. It has variable speeds, and you can turn it on. And that, as you can see that filter, look at how black that filter is. It sucks any of the airborne dust into there, and then it comes out the backside clean. That's a dual filter system once again. So that's on high right there. And that will circulate the air through the shop, takes the dust in the front side, goes through that outer filter, then there's a bag filter inside, and then it comes out the back side with no dust. I use that a lot during welding and stuff like that as well. But anyways, so I just use a regular dust mask. These are actually 3M dust masks, or 3M masks. These are N95 masks, actually. I had found a bunch of these for a really good deal. I bought like 20 cases of them years ago. And yes, they do expire, but I don't know that, I think they expire for like medical use, but for dust, I don't see it being a problem. But these, I like these a lot because they really conform to your face nicely. This has metal inside of here and dual straps right here. So dust protection is a must in my opinion. I think you should definitely use it. I see a lot of people spray painting and stuff without it. And I know when I was young, I did dumb stuff like that too. And then I got a little older and realized probably shouldn't be doing that stuff. Okay, so also with cabinet repair, if you'll see me use fiberglass resin on occasions. This is all I use. I just go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a gallon of fiberglass resin, Bondo brand fiberglass resin, doesn't matter what brand it is. And it has a liquid hardener, which I don't have out right now. and it gets mixed with the liquid hardener, and just follow the directions on the can on how to mix it. If I'm filling in some little chunks that are missing out of the cabinet, I use this a ton. This is short strand fiberglass reinforced filler. So there's little strands of fiberglass in here. This is some uncured stuff because it was on the outside of the can, but I doubt you can see it, but there's little hairs of fiberglass sticking out of this filler. And this gets mixed with a just a blue hardener. All these blue hardeners are the same. It doesn't matter, they're all the same hardener. But this gets mixed with this, you let it dry, and it's a real good solid fix. This I actually get at Harbor Freight anymore. Seems to be the cheapest to buy it, but they only sell it in quarts. My main body filler that I use a lot of, I use this from Summit Racing. I get it from Summit Racing because I get it the cheapest through Summit Racing. This is lightweight auto body filler. The part number is SUM 944000. Get this by the gallon. I think it's like $30, $40 a gallon, and it comes with the hardener. This is for bigger areas or bigger spots that I'm filling in, thicker. This is for final little minor stuff. It's Fantastic Glaze by U-Pull. Part number is UP0922. Now you can probably look all these parts up online and order them through Amazon or somewhere else and get them as well. This comes from O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's like 20 bucks a tube. Now on occasions you'll see me use this other filler here, which is made by U-Pull. It's called Dolphin Glaze. The part number is UP0714. Now I use this sometimes in place of this. This is 14.9 ounces, this is 15 ounces, basically the same size. The reason why I switch between these two is just a cost issue. The last time I had a case of this, I paid $15 a thing for it. Okay, so obviously I'm gonna go with this versus the $20 a piece for this. So that's just has to do with price. I think they're both comparable product-wise. I think they both do the same thing, and I think they both pretty much work just as good. So those are the fillers that I use for the cabinets. As far as primers, I use automotive primer because I paint cars. I have all the equipment to use the automotive primers, but to be honest with you, I don't really know what's out there. I guess you can use, actually, yes, I do. You can use a Valspar cabinet and furniture paint, and they probably have a primer as well. But when you guys see me roll cabinets, which I don't do very often, but I do occasionally roll paint on a cabinet, this is what I use. This is what I like to use. It works really well. It's made by Valspar. It's sold at Lowe's. It's cabinet and furniture paint. You can get it in whatever color you want. And it works really well. It's actually made out of, what do they make this out of nowadays? It's an enamel, oil enriched enamel. And this cleans up with water. So you can clean your paintbrush out and stuff with water, but you can get pretty much any color you want mixed. This is just black off the shelf, but the Kickman, I had yellow mixed up and I had a few other colors mixed up for that. So I think they sell a primer as well that you can roll on, and I think it's sandable. So as far as the primer I use, because I use a spray gun and everything, I use this 2K urethane primer from Summit Racing. The part number is SUM UP220G. G stands for gallon. You can also get it in quart, which will end in a Q. Now, this is gray color. They sell it in white and black as well. I just stick with gray. It seems to be just kind of like the middle of the road color for me. I guess if you're painting a bunch of white, you can get the white underneath it if you want. But so this is a mixture of 4-to-1. So it takes 4 parts of this primer to 1 part of its hardener, which is right here. This is a medium temp hardener, okay? This is their hardener that goes with that primer. Now they sell this in slow, medium, and fast hardener. I always use slow hardener. Very rarely do I use medium or fast because I'm in a heated environment. If you're not in a heated environment, you're going to want to use a medium or a fast. It helps it cure quicker. So basically it's a 4-to-1 mix, 4 parts primer, 1 part hardener, and That is a very, very thick primer. So I add about 15 to 20% reducer to it to thin it down a little bit so that it sprays out smoother. This is just a run-of-the-mill urethane reducer. This is slow. They sell it in medium and fast. Obviously, medium and fast is going to dry quicker than the slow if you don't have heat. This is made by USC. Part number is 4225. Obviously, this part number is going to change if it's a medium or a fast urethane hardener, or reducer, I'm sorry. But this is, urethane reducers are urethane reducers. I don't care what anybody says. If I want to spend $80 a gallon on this and buy PPG reducer, I can. Or I could spend $30 a gallon on this, and guess what? It works just as well as the $80 a gallon stuff. It's the same stuff. Don't waste your money. So that's the primers that I use. Now, you'll see me, I call it sealing a cabinet or putting epoxy primer over bare metal. I use another product by Speedy Coat. Okay? Speedo Coat, Speedy Coat, whatever they call it. This is epoxy primer. DTM means direct to metal. This can be sprayed directly to bare metal. Okay, it's a primer slash sealer. So this is an epoxy primer that you can put over bare metal, and also you can thin it down and use it as a sealer before you put your color on your cabinet. Now, the reason why I use a sealer is, real quick before I get to that, so this is a 4-to-1 mix, 4 parts epoxy, 1 part of their hardener. Did I give you the part number? Is SMR 260G. So I use this sometimes for bare metal to cover it and seal it off from moisture and stuff, especially after you sandblast. If you want to use it as a sealer, I mix it 4 parts epoxy primer, 1 part hardener, and I add 20% reducer. What that does is thins the product out, makes it spray on smoother and not as textured. Now, the reason why I use this a lot on cabinets is if I use the 2K primer and I sand the cabinet down, well, let's say I break through a couple spots, or I go back and I do a little bit of glazing putty touch-up, okay, before I paint. Well, now you have that bare body material. Okay, so you have gray primer here, and then you have bare body material here, okay? And if you don't put that sealer over it, you're gonna end up, you could end up with your, let's say blue paint, like the Journey cabinet there. Your blue paint here will look one way, and it'll look different on this body filler because that blue paint is gonna soak into that body filler differently than it's gonna soak into the gray primer itself. Can you get it to look the same? Probably, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. This is another product you'll see me use. This is another primer. This is a 1K primer made by Spray Max. Part number is 3680404. Now, this is a 3-in-1 primer, and you do not have to sand this if you don't want to. So let's say I broke through some spots on the cabinet while sanding it, or I did a little bit of touch up with the glazing filler. You can hit those spots with just this, and this will act kind of as a seal. It will act as a sealer, but you don't have to seal the whole cabinet. You can get this on Amazon, Summit Racing. It's expensive. It's like $30 a can, but it goes a long way if you use it sparingly. You could use this on big areas too. It costs you a lot of money. And that's why I only use it for small repairs and stuff like that. Now, this gallon of 2K primer with the hardener is like $100 through Summit Racing shipped. And you can probably get 3 arcade cabinets out of that. So you do the math. You're looking at, let's just say $40 per cabinet for primer with reducer and everything, okay? So for $40, you could probably get yourself a quart of roll-on primer as well. But, you know, it's comparable, I think, to if you went to Home Depot or Lowe's and bought a roll-on primer, somewhere along those lines. This epoxy primer, you'll buy a gallon of it and it'll last a really long time because you never end up using a lot of it at one time. So now a lot of times when I paint my satin black on the cabinet itself, I use this product here by Summit Racing. This is Hot Rod They call it flat single stage acrylic urethane paint. Okay, this is just a generic flat right here. I don't have the can lid on it right now because I have my pouring top on here, but this is a satin finish. Okay, they sell this in 3 different finishes: flat, satin, I believe, maybe 2. Oh, matte, flat, and satin. This is satin finish. The matte is a little bit duller, and the flat doesn't look good. You don't want to use flat. But this is what I use a lot of times for the black on the cabinet. It's just a single stage paint. I'm looking for a part number, which of course is on the lid. Well, I don't know why they do that on these ones, but anyways, if you look up hot rod, flat, single stage, acrylic urethane at Summit Racing, you'll find this. They sell it in black, white, and maybe a couple other colors. Like the Journey cabinet, for instance, when I painted that, I used automotive paint, and then I put a satin clear over top of it. Once again, Summit Racing sells a hot rod satin clear. It says it on the can here. SUMUP 205 G is in gallon. You can also get it in quart. Now they sell this in flat, satin, and matte finish. I like the satin finish. I think it turns out really good, as you can see on the Journey cabinet behind me right there. It's a nice smooth finish. Now using this product is tricky. So is the black. You have to try to spray this on really smooth and evenly. Okay, now the catch with this, you cannot rush it. You have to wait until the first coat is dry to where it is the same consistency on the whole side of the cabinet. If you have a shiny spot here and a shiny spot down there, and you go to put a second coat on, those 2 spots are always going to be a little different sheen than the rest of the cabinet. So you have to make sure it completely dries to where it's all the same sheen on the whole side of the cabinet. Then you apply your second coat. So that's what I use to cover up paint, the automotive paint that I use. This is, a lot of what I use is Omni, made by PPG. This is their medium of the road paint. This is Omni Plus, okay? They sell regular Omni, which is the bottom of the barrel. Omni Plus is the middle. DVC is the top. I use this a lot for custom colors on cabinets. I have the paint code for Journey. I put it in the Journey video, but this is a 1-to-1 mix paint. So this pint right here makes a quart of sprayable product. Automotive paint is not cheap. I just picked up a quart of silver the other day for those motorcycle parts I'm painting, and it was $130 for a quart of silver, but a quart makes a half a gallon. Once again, I like using this stuff because look at the finish it reads. It gives you the best finish you're ever going to get. You can use this cabinet paint with a nice foam roller and get a pretty nice result. You will get some orange peel in it, but you can sand it down and put more coats on and stuff like that. I believe you might be able to thin that furniture paint, but don't quote me on that. I don't know what you would use to thin it. I've never had to thin it, but you could. Okay, so that's the paint that I use when I do a lot of automotive painting. I also use a couple other brands. I'm not married to one brand or another when it comes to any of this products, except for I really like my Krylon. But anyways, these products, I'm not married to them. I'm a type of person that's willing to try a new product, especially if it's cost effective. So when I'm spraying my primers, I use a cheap gun from Harbor Freight. I think this gun was like 50 bucks. It's a HVLP. This gun has a 1.8 tip. It's a big tip on the end of it. And it sprays that 2K primer really well. When I paint, I have $1,000 spray guns that I use for cars. And to be honest with you, I haven't been using them because I've been using this Aero Pro part number A610 from Amazon for $80. This thing sprays so well that I bought 4 of them. I actually gave one of them away on my other video, on my other channel. I don't know. This is my second one. My first one actually broke after like a year. And it was an O-ring, and I changed the O-ring. I just haven't tried it since, but it's smooth. It works really well. I think it's mimicked after a Awada spray gun, but I'm not positive. But so I think this sprays as well as my $1,000 spray guns that I have, which are Sada spray guns. I just use this now. And I look at it this way. In a year, if it fails, I just throw it in the garbage and buy another one for $80. Because even the expensive spray guns fail over time and you have to replace parts on them. So I clean these in a gun washing cabinet, which 90% of people are not gonna have a gun washing cabinet, but you can disassemble it and clean it with lacquer thinner. But yeah, Amazon Aero Pro A610 is the part number for that. This one I don't have a part number for. It's just a cheap Harbor Freight spray gun. I use, to clean the cabinets before I paint, I use 2 different products depending on what I'm doing. This is called Prep Ball. This is wax and grease remover. You can get this on Amazon. Seems to be the cheapest place around. It's like $50 a gallon. It is expensive. But I have it in that little white spray bottle. You'll see me pump the top, and that's just putting pressure in it, and it turns it into a spray can form. I wipe the cabinets down with these special towels. These are lint-free towels used for painting cars, but you can also use microfiber towels. Microfiber towels will work just as good as these. You can actually get blue microfiber towels on a roll at Walmart for like $15 a roll, and there's like 200 thin microfiber towels on that. If you don't want to spend $40, $50 on Prep Ball, you can use this. This is a very good way to clean parts off. Sprayway glass cleaner, okay? This foams up and it works really well. It's an ammonia-free cleaner. And once again, you use your microfiber towel or these special lint-free towels, and you just spray down the whole cabinet, wipe it. I suggest doing it twice just to make sure you get everything off of it. Well, obviously after your second wiping of your cabinet, you might see a little bit of a haze still, okay? What that is the dust that you pull out of all your sanding marks and stuff like that. And I use a dust cloth. I get these from TCBP Global. These are just tack cloths, okay? They're 18 inches by 36 inches. So when you take it out of this little package here, you take it, you open it all up, and then you fluff it up. So this is just an example of a used one. Even after wiping it down twice with cleaner, see the dirt on there? That's dust that this still pulled off of your cabinet. If you don't do that, you're going to paint that into your paint job, and you're going to have not as good of a paint job when you're done. So that's pretty much it as far as the spraying part of automotive paints. Now you'll see here, I have Reynolds wrap out here, foil wrap, okay? And I use this sometimes for, let's take a little piece and I'll show you. This has gotten expensive. I think it's like $10 for a roll, but this is like 90 square feet, 30 yards, so it's 90 foot long. But I'll take foil sometimes, guys, and don't mind my messy workbench as usual. I kind of leave it like this when I have something torn apart because I kind of know how it goes back together then. But anyways, let's say I want to paint this black, which I still have to. Take this aluminum foil. If you don't want to run a bunch of masking tape over these wires, take all your wires, kind of group them together, take your aluminum foil, and wrap your wires up. Look at that. Instant masking tape. Conforms to it way easier than taping the whole thing or using tape and paper. So you'll see me use aluminum foil here and there. That's what I use it for. I use it on automotive as well. All right, so now let's get into the spray cans that I use. I like Krylon. I've had really good success with Krylon paint. I don't like Rust-Oleum paint. I think it takes too long to dry, and I think you run the risk of wanting to recoat it and getting a reaction with it. I've never had real good luck with Rust-Oleum. So almost everything that I paint satin black that's out of a spray can is this Fusion by Krylon, all-in-one 5X paint. I use matte finish. They sell it in satin, flat, and gloss. I like the matte finish. That's the black that I always use. This is the texture that I use for my coin doors. It's Fusion all-in-one. This is paint and primer. You can put this right over bare metal. This is textured finish black. So I'll put this textured finish black on the coin door first, and then I go over it with the 5X matte black over top. So that's what I use for my black. I started using this silver with really good success. It looks really well. Made by Krylon. It's called High Heat Max. Okay, it's aluminum color. Part number is 16080, aluminum. This looks almost like bare metal once it's sprayed on the bare metal. I do put a clear coat over top of it because I've noticed that this being silver, if you have any sort of black or the oil from your skin touches this, it tends to leave like a little bit of marks on it because it's such a light color. So I use the Krylon Fusion all-in-one clear. I like the satin clear. They sell it in flat satin gloss, I think. I don't know that they sell it in a matte finish, but this is the clear I'll put over this silver. You can put it on right after you spray the silver. Once the silver sets for about 10 minutes, you can go ahead and put this on. Now, say you don't sandblast your cabinet and you sand it with a DA sandpaper, okay? And let's say your part still has some rust on it, which I'm looking to see. This doesn't really have rust on it. This is from the Pango cabinet, which is in really good shape. This, let's say you sand it with your DA and there's still a little rust in there, okay? You can use this stuff. It's called Rust Reformer, okay? Now this stuff will take that little bit of surface rust you have left. You need to sand it first. You need to try to get as much off as you can. Whatever surface rust is left and maybe pits or anything like that, it'll turn it black once it dries. Once this turns it black and it's fully dry, it converts that rust over and it stops that rust from further rusting. Believe it or not, this stuff I got at Harbor Freight. I was buying it from other places and it was a lot more expensive. I went to Harbor Freight, saw it on the shelf. I'm like, huh, let's try it. And it works. It turns it black. It cleans it up. It goes on clear and then it turns it black. So don't be deceived if it starts spraying out clear thinking your cabinet or your spray can is bad. So let's just try this. I gotta sand this down, but see that rust right there on the top of that? Let's see if I spray a little bit on here, what happens to it. It's not instant either. See how it just kind of makes that rust look even shinier? Let me get up close here. See how it's just shiny looking rust? Let's see if it converts that black. I don't know if it's going to. I didn't sand it or anything, and I don't know how long it's actually going to take, depending. But we'll see if it works. It might have to sit overnight, but obviously I'm going to sand it down, so I'm not too worried about it. But this works really good on any parts that still have a little bit of rust. Spray this on there, and then lightly scuff it down. You'll see me use these a lot. This is a red Scotch Brite pad. All this is like a 400 grit sandpaper, and it's just easier to use. I cut them in half, and once you spray this stuff, you can just give it a little scuff with this, and then switch over to your Krylon here, and put your Krylon paint over top of it. And that's going to help the longevity of your bare metal that possibly still has some rust on it. But yeah, you'll see me use this red Scotch Brite pad. Even after I sand the cabinet with 320 grit sandpaper, I'll hit it with this just as a fine going over everything and kind of just smoothing everything out. I always sand 320 grit to 400 grit before I paint. I don't leave it any rougher than that. I start with 180 grit and I go up to 320 or 400 before I paint. Anything smaller than that, you run the risk of sanding marks underneath your paint. If you're using automotive paint and you're using a silver paint, what will happen if you sand with 180 and then you go right into silver paint? The silver metallic will sit in the sanding marks and you'll see sanding marks under your paint job. And that's where this epoxy primer comes into use, /sealer, is you put that on the cabinet before you put your silver down with the metallic, and this fills in the sanding marks and keeps your metallic from going in there and looking funny. So I think I pretty much have covered everything as far as what I use and why I use it. If there's anything that anybody has a question about, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go over it with you. Somebody had asked me about spraying technique and if I can make a video on painting so that they don't get runs in their paint job. That comes partially from how you do it, and the other part from just experience. You're better off putting on light coats versus heavy coats. Your first coat of paint, you don't want to put it on to where it's completely covered. Like my first coat of black paint, you'll see me put it on. Sometimes you'll be able to see through it and still see some bare metal underneath it. That's fine. This first coat is the most important coat you can put on your parts. Put your first coat on light to medium. Let it set until it's fully set up. Not wet, until it's fully set up. Then your second coat can go on heavier. Your first coat acts as an adhesive. Your first coat kind of grips the material. Your second coat will grip to that first coat. So if you put your first coat on and it's wet and you start spraying your second coat right away, it's going to run right off the panel. You got to let that first coat set up. Same thing with automotive paint. You want to put your first coat on light to medium, and then you can put your second and third coat on heavier. Now, how many coats of paint you need, that varies depending on how it looks. If you think it looks good, stop. If you think it needs one more coat, put one more coat on. That's just gonna, there's no thing saying 2 coats is all you got to do. You never have to do more than 2 coats, because that's just not true. You might have to put 3, 4, 5 coats on it before it looks good. And that's just, excuse me, tired. That just goes to on how you want it to look. I mean, you're the one doing it, so you have to do that. But I can make a video on spraying. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. I would be more than happy to do a video on showing you some techniques on spraying. Now, if I were to say I never get runs is a lie, because yes, I still run stuff here and there. Do I do it often? No, not usually. Does it happen sometimes? Yes. And it's just, it is what it is. Sometimes you have to sand stuff down and redo it. I am not afraid to sand a paint job down and redo it if I don't like the way it looks, because in the end, you want it to look good. You want to, take pride in fixing stuff, because in the end, when you stand back and look at it and it looks awesome, you know that you did that and you were able to accomplish it. And every time you do something, you're going to get better at it. Repetition is very important with this kind of stuff. And you're going to learn little tricks and stuff that work for you that might not work for me. So what I do with this stuff works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's just a good base to start from. And as you get good and comfortable at doing this kind of stuff, you might find a better way to do it than I do it, okay? And I might watch somebody on YouTube that does something that I do and be like, that's a way easier way to do it than I've been doing it, and then I'll switch. So there's always a learning process. I don't care how long you've been doing this stuff, you're always going to learn from it. I want to see if this changed color at all. Probably not, because, yeah, not really, because I didn't sand it down. But anyways, I think that wraps up all the products I use and stuff like that. Once again, I use a heated environment for painting, so it makes a dramatic difference as far as getting runs and dirt and stuff like that in my stuff. You can still get awesome results outside. You can also get awesome results in your garage. It's mainly in how you clean your parts, the prep, and cleaning the area that you're working in. My sanders, once again, are hooked up to a vacuum system, and that's just to keep the dust down in the shop so I don't have to clean it as much. Because time is money, and when you're doing this full time, this kind of stuff, it costs a lot of money to be spending several hours a day cleaning your shop. So you gotta find ways to do things quicker. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. Let me know what you think, if there's anything I missed here. But this table pretty much represents what I use to fix arcade cabinets. All this material is obviously not used on every one, just depending on what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and how I'm doing it, and how bad it is and stuff like that. But it's funny because I didn't think I used that much stuff when I restored an arcade game until last night when I laid all this out on the table. I'm like, man, that's a lot of stuff. But all this stuff I always have because I paint cars, so having this stuff for me is just a normal thing. if you want to get into the automotive finish type field to do this kind of restoration, you're going to have a pretty big up cost at first on expensive buying all this stuff, but in the end it'll work out. If you plan on restoring 10 cabinets and you buy 2 to 3 gallons of primer, it's going to cost you, let's say you buy 3 gallons of primer with hardener, it's going to cost you $300, but you're going to get 10 cabinets out of it, maybe even a little bit more depending on how thick and how much you put on. So at $300, 10 cabinets is only $30 a cabinet. So you got to look at it as the long run. If you want to go to the automotive side of it and do it that way, it's going to cost a lot of money for that first cabinet you restore, but you're going to have materials left over for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So that's what you have to look forward to. Will it cost you? It would probably cost you to use the automotive paint side of it to get a gallon of primer, a gallon of sealer, a gallon of clear, and a gallon of black. You're probably looking at about $450 to $500 for these 4 products back here with hardener. Probably $500 because you're going to need some reducer as well. Okay, Bondo and stuff people are already using. Now, if you want to get automotive paint, you know, it's all going to depend on the color and how much you need. But a pint of paint will get you a quart. A quart is more than enough to do a cabinet. You could probably do 2 cabinets with a quart. And a quart of paint might cost you $80 to $120 depending on the color. Certain colors cost more than other colors. This, for instance, this can I grabbed last night, this is Tesla Pearl White, which is expensive. You know, this is $150 a pint. You know, but that's just is what it is. Obviously, you're not using Tesla Pearl White paint job on your arcade cabinet. But let's say you spend $100 on a quart of paint for your arcade cabinet. Well, you split that in 2 because you can get 2 cabinets out of it. You're at $50. If you only need a pint of paint, it'll probably cost you $60. Yes, I did say that correctly. You would think a pint would cost $50 if a quart costs $100, but it doesn't. They rip you off. But I think this stuff right here, this Valspar cabinet and furniture paint, is $30 to $40 a quart at Lowe's. So it's really not much difference. $10. And the effect you're going to get from this versus this is night and day. This is going to be awesome looking. This is going to be okay looking. But all right, I'm going to end this video. I don't know how long it is. I'm not editing it. I'm leaving it run as it is because there's nothing to edit. I just kind of went over what I use, why I use it, and how I use it. I believe I caught everything. We're going to be fixing this Pango cabinet this weekend and getting it in primer so that it can sit for a week, and then we'll get it painted and into the basement. Now, the Pango cabinet, I'm going to take a piece that I cut off the bottom to the paint store tomorrow, and I'm going to get that matched up, that color Pango blue. So I'll have the automotive paint code for that blue if anybody needs it. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. It doesn't cost anything. It just lets you know when new videos come out. If you know anybody that's interested in this stuff, either in the arcade restoration side of it or the car restoration side of it, please share my videos. I have another channel. I don't know what I forget what my name is on the other one, but it's related to cars, and I do cars and motorcycle parts on there. And I use all these products for that as well. Let me show you something real quick for you on this. But like I said, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing to people that might be interested in this, or you know, hitting the thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. So these motorcycle parts were painted the other day, and this is the automotive paint. Okay, this is right out of the spray gun, no wet sanding and buffing or anything like that. And this is the finishes that you can achieve by simply having a clean environment, which I do not have a clean environment right now, guys. Look at the floors in here. Look at the spray booth floor. Look at all that dust. But I cleaned the parts really well. I put paper on my wood stand, and I got results that look like this. No dirt, no orange peel, no nothing. So, like I said, this is a far superior way to restore an arcade cabinet rather than a paintbrush and a roller. But a lot of people don't have garages and stuff like that. You don't have a choice to use that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's anything bad. I've actually made a couple videos on it, but I mean, look at the difference here. We have zero orange peel, no dirt, no nothing. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Let me know if you want me to make a video on spraying. I will definitely do that for you guys. And if there's any other videos that you guys are interested in seeing, do you want me to make a video on the electrical side of it, or on the electronic repair side of it, which I kind of cover it on my restorations depending on what's broken at that time. And I'm going to be making some videos on wiring harnesses. We're going to make some wiring harnesses, one for Journey, one for Kickman, and we are going to be making one for, can't think of the name of it, Phoenix. So I got a guy who I've been talking to for a while. He actually won, his name is Pete. He won the Numbskull Dig Dug. And let me look up his name of his YouTube channel real quick. Okay, his name is Pete. He has a Phoenix, and the wiring harness in his Phoenix cabinet is actually out of a cocktail table, but he is willing to send it to me so that I know all the wire colors, where they go and everything, and we'll just make a Phoenix wiring harness off of that for an upright cabinet. So basically, the only real difference would be the length of the wire, and that we have one control panel versus two, so we can eliminate that. His YouTube channel, I'm going to spell it out because I don't really know how to say it. I'm not good at pronouncing certain names and stuff like that. So his YouTube channel is spelled K-A-Z-E-L-A-S Arcade. Look him up. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, consider subscribing to it, and watch some of his videos. He does some arcade pickups and repairs and stuff like that as well. But he's the one that won that Numbskull Dig Dug cabinet. So he actually made a arcade, not cabinet. He actually made a video on him receiving that. It was in I think it was my 6,000 subscriber or something like that giveaway. I forget, or maybe 8,000. I don't know. But that's gonna end it, guys. I'm done rambling on. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys later on the next Pango restoration, and then we're gonna be doing the part 12 on Spy Hunter, putting the power supply, power brick back together, and the coin door.